feel ready now. We have our Friday, April 29th meeting of the Independent Transportation Surtax Oversight Board. I think we need to do a roll call, please.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Alan Hooper,
Here.
Douglas Coolman,
Find the button here.
thank you. Phil Allen,
Here.
Allison Love,
Here.
Debbie Madden,
Here.
Anthea Pennant, Chase Smith, and Ronald Frazier and Dr. Consuelo Kelly are participating virtually today.
Great. Excellent. Okay. At this moment, if there's anybody from the public who would like to speak. Okay. I did. Is there anybody that would like to speak from the public? Please let us know. Hey, how are you? It's okay, you're right on time.
Mr. Raymond McElroy, are you here to speak publicly on an item? And Karen Warfel? Okay, Mr. Chair, I think we're okay.
Yeah, I think Karen's with the city of Fort Lauderdale. Okay, well. You're here. Okay. I didn't know they told you how to get through the corridors of the governmental center. Okay, so we'll move on to our regular agenda. The first item is a motion to approve our minutes from the January 28th, 2022 board meeting. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve.
Do we have a sec? Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion on the minutes from any of the members? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. So let's move on to the presentations. We have RSM, Surtax Fund Audit Report. I'm sorry, do we need him to speak into the microphone? Thank you.
Can you turn up the mic? I am having difficulty. Can you get closer to the mic? I'm having some difficulty in.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Good.
it wasn't on this whole time.
Yes, as it relates to the accounting policies and practices, the Surtax program did not adopt any significant new accounting policies, nor have there been any changes in existing significant accounting policies during the current period. We did not identify any significant unusual transactions, and as it relates to audit adjustments and uncorrected misstatements, there were no audit adjustments proposed to us and recorded by the county management for the Surtax program. So in terms of the observations about the audit process, we encountered no disagreements with management over the application of significant accounting principles. As it relates to internal control matters, there were no matters reported that were relevant to the program. Significant written communications between management and our firm is highlighted on Exhibit A. That's the management rep letter provided to us by management, signed by management.
Can we go back to, I'm sorry,
Okay.
the management control or the internal control matters
Yes.
and the management letter? It says the management letter has not been provided at this point. It will be provided by June 30th. Is that correct?
How did you answer that, Bryan?
Yes, no, since this was provided to you, the management letter has been issued, again, with no comments with regard to the Surtax
Okay.
program.
And I guess I have conflicting stories here that the management letter has been issued, but we haven't seen it.
We can provide it to you. Again,
Would
it's,
you
it has the standard language in accordance with the Audit Journal with no comments on it to report. But
Okay,
we'll share
well-
it with the advisory board.
We've had that in the past, and I just wanted to be consistent
Yep.
that we're providing that information. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So going on to page 3 of the document. In terms of significant accounting estimates, investment valuation was considered a significant estimate. The columns on the left outlines the accounting policies, management's estimate process, and also the basis for our conclusion on the reasonableness of the estimate. As mentioned prior, the management rep letter is included in Appendix A. That sums up the report. Any questions before we move on to the financial statements?
No?
Okay.
They're not in there, but they're in there.
Oh, okay.
So the financial statements are not up on the screen, but they're in your package. What we wanted to do is just, in addition to the required communications, Sardou was just going to give you a couple of highlights from the fund financials, just some key points.
All right. Thank you, Brett. So if you guys turn to page 1 of the financial statements, this here is the independent auditor's report. On pages 1 and 2, those are the only pages that belong to us, the auditors. We issued a clean opinion, unmodified, which is the highest level of opinion we can provide. Now, if you go to page 3 of the financial statements, this represents the balance sheet of the Transportation Surtax Program, which is made up of 2 funds, the Special Revenue and the Capital Projects. The Transportation Surtax Fund captures disbursements to other governments, and the Transportation Surtax Capital captures county-related capital projects. So in total, the assets of the total Transportation Surtax Program was $858 million. Total liabilities of $7.8 million, and the fund balance restricted for transportation program projects is $850 million, approximately. So if you go to page 4 of the document, this represents the schedule of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. This is similar to an income statement, or it is the income statement. The total Transportation Surtax Program had total revenues of $429 million. Expenditures of $131 million, and the overall net change in fund balance was $297 million, approximately. That made for a change in fund balance from the beginning of the year of $553 million, increased to $850 million. The pages that follow includes notes to the financial statements. On pages 8 and 9, you'll see the budget versus actual schedules for the fund. That sums up our summary as it relates to the financial statements. Any questions?
Financial. Put it on. Any questions?
Yes, and then again, we decided to give you additional information just to walk through some key highlights on the financials. When we provided originally to Gretchen, we were originally just going to go over the required communications, but we thought this would be a little more informative. So, sorry, next time we'll make sure to have her upload both of them to the slides.
All right, so that sums up our reports. Any questions?
So are you guys going to go through the footnotes, or we'll just peruse those on our own? I mean, is there anything significant we should hone in on the footnotes? And then while you're looking at that, I mean, I guess having an audit background and being an auditor myself, I mean, most of what we're reporting is standard communication, which makes sense. I guess my question would be, are there any other things that you're seeing in recommendations you're making and going through this work? I mean, there's a lot of transactions and a lot of dollars moving through here, and it's somewhat complicated because of the relationship with the county in terms of moving funds back and forth and that sort of thing. So I'd like to think that there would be some comments, not necessarily things that are official management letter comments that rise to like a material weakness or a significant deficiency, but I would just think that you guys would see things and say, hey, maybe there's a best practice here or something that you could recommend, because obviously you get intimately involved in the reporting. The other kind of just overall comment I'll make to the group is, to me, when I look at these balances and our role here specifically, I just look at the fund balance and just think, wow, it's almost like there's too much there, right? Where it's great to have, equity in essence here, but it kind of scares me that there's so much there that we just need to get that, in essence, where it's supposed to be, which is into the infrastructure, right? Is it just a big picture is how I kind of look at that. I don't know if anybody else has any commentary, if you guys have thought about that, but to me, that's what we're trying to do here, is trying to get the resources
But what was the net,
utilized.
what was the net worth? What was the net amount after liabilities?
It's $850,194.
Yeah, which is 850 million.
So we have it in surplus, 850
Yeah.
million.
Yes.
It hasn't been earmarked.
It's restricted, but
I get that.
Well, it's restricted, and then you have the one significant note to go to would be the back of note 1 on page 7. You have approximately 43 million of amounts that have been encumbered. So that's projects that have already been begun. There's purchase orders out there. So 43 million of that has not been expended yet under GAAP, but again, there is action going on.
So the question would be, and we probably do, but I'm just asking, the question would be, what projects are earmarked for this 850 million? It could be light rail, it could be a lot of things that are on the books for future projects that probably require big numbers. So it would be interesting to understand what those things are and how we're going to fill the bucket with $850 million worth of infrastructure project. Even if it's, I think Shay's asking this, even if this is, broadly brushed in the audit, or at least from our staff to let us know that we're not just sitting on 800, and to let the public know that we're not really sitting on 850. There is things we're saving to tee up.
what is in the investments line item? What is that actually?
What page you on?
I'm on the balance sheet, page 3.
Okay.
Well, again, that's just where the money is basically currently being invested. Again, it's all pulled together in the county. It's just kind of, again, some is in pure cash, which earns next to nothing. Others, obviously, investments which don't earn a lot right now, but still earn more. But
Yeah, the reason I was just asking, I mean, we have a cash and cash equivalents line, so I would assume those are things with maturities of, 3 months or less. And then I was just curious about the investments in the yield. It's not something I've spent much time thinking about. The reason I'm asking is correlated to my other question, where I just want to be careful that I don't want to see this fund balance continue to build, right? Where we're taking, residents' dollars and parking it here, right? The goal is to get it out there. So I was just curious if what we'd be earning, because we have a total of $710 million in the investments line. So whatever yield that, you know, that's, we're in essence creating that benefit for the residents. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, one other thing, again, just to Shay's comments, the first most important footnote was the encumbrances, just to let you know what's been committed but not expended yet, because that does differentiate between fund balance versus what projects are in activity. That's the most significant note in here. The other thing to highlight is we have worked with accounting as far as segregating between the capital projects that the county is running versus the monies being dispersed out to the other governments. That having those separate individual funds within the program really helps them to kind of delineate. You could also dive into the budgets for each to know, what's budgeted for county projects, what's budgeted for outside projects. That would be probably most relevant.
Yeah, I think that's essential to have those separate, or else it would get really confusing.
Are you asking for, Jay, are you asking for additional information?
Well, yeah, I'm not entirely, I had never before now really focused on what do we have in the investments, and just, I'm sure there are people in the room that can speak to this, but I'm sure being, commingled with the county, I'm sure they're very conservative. Those are probably very low yielding bonds in this environment or something like that. So it's just more just to make the point that we have these dollars. They're not going to be earning much there. The real purpose of them is to get the money out there. And I think it could be a fair criticism over time from people that pay into this, that we shouldn't let the fund balance grow. Like, we shouldn't look at this something we should monitor and be careful about, because yes, we could have huge projects, but those larger projects also take a lot of time to get approved and rolled out. So I just want to be careful that, that doesn't just keep building, right?
Yeah, but so then you are asking for that information, right?
Yeah, I'm bringing up a broad topic.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm just, you're the guy with we're in your wheelhouse right now.
Yeah, I love it. Let's stay on audited financials. Everybody in the crowd will just slowly fall asleep.
No,
I have to wake
I
everyone
know,
up for
but,
something else.
but
Hold
again,
on.
you're bringing up a question. Does it land in an audit, or does it land in just a budget? And instead of showing it as investment, should it show up as
Well, I think that one thing is, Brett mentioned the encumbrances, right? So one thing could be to look at that process, right? And this is where it could tie into what the auditors do. The auditors, I've been in that role too, and I continue to do that work. They're strictly speaking, they're not necessarily going to analyze a process totally for efficiency, right? But they're also seeing these things while they're there. So, and I know sometimes in governmental, it's probably a little, maybe you're not as apt to look for these things. I'm not sure. I know with our private clients, where I mostly do my work, we kind of, depending on the relationship, we try and give them every comment that we can. And one thing that I would just be curious about is the encumbrance process too slow? Just benchmarking it against other governmental entities, other ways we could be doing things to just speed things up. Like, I think this encumbrance list for the fund balance that we have should be larger. All things being equal, like we are where we are, and it's not being critical of the past. I just think if there's anything we can do as a group to push it in that direction, I think that's wise. I know that it's complicated by a myriad of issues, including what cities do, and it's a complicated thing. It's not like something you hit a button and all of a sudden now you have 200 million in encumbrances, but I would like it if there was more in that bucket.
That's good. Doug had a question.
Yeah, just really
You have
for
a question
Gretchen,
as
is
well?
the reason, good to see the fund balance grow, but the reason it's so large at this point in time is we're only in year 3 or 4, and these things are gonna catch up, right? I mean, it's just like, okay, how much is, we've got this now, but how much is, as we're asking, is already committed? It's not spent because either the projects haven't started, or is this just an anomaly, as I call it, a lag between
I don't
spending
know.
it and what's going on?
I'll tell you how I do it. when I get cash into my account, it's usually because I just got a capital infusion from equity partners, and it goes to a project, and it shows up as equity in a project. So, I mean, we earmark money when it comes in. The minute it comes in, it falls under some sort of asset. So but then again, maybe that's what we need to do is. So go ahead, Gretchen. Sorry.
Well, certainly, if there's someone from the Office of Management and Budget who is listening and would like to come in, clearly there are some questions that I think that they might be able to add value. All I'm doing is looking at our capital budget book from fiscal year 2022 to respond to the questions. There are significant pots of money that are placed into reserves, and when, as you all know, when the county commission appropriates funding for municipal projects, for instance, in fiscal year 2020, there was a set aside of almost $140 million for municipal projects that year, both capital, rehabilitation and maintenance, as well as the community shuttle program. So that is still there. And that's one of the reasons why when you all ask about the status of the project funding agreements from Cycle 1, that money is set aside for those projects. Those projects all have tails for the most part, unless they were construction phase projects, they were in planning or design. When you all approved the 5-year plan, there are responsibilities and encumbrances that we make in those out years for those projects that, for instance, in fiscal year 2022, $45 million was set aside for municipal projects, again, capital and community shuttle. I think the big ticket items that Mr. Smith and the Vice Chair are talking about are for these reserves and transfers. And these are reserve pots that are for major capital investments that are expected to be happening in the near term. There is $80 million that was transferred for regional transportation projects. There was $263,114,160 for other project commitments that were already funded in some phase. These are county projects. There's also a reserve for the port to airport and convention center connector, $137,561,590. So there are significant pots of money that are being reserved for large projects, yes.
And does that fall under where on the balance sheet?
Well, again, those items wouldn't be on there unless you have a specific contract already in place. So you have projects, but until you actually have the vendor engaged, they wouldn't show up here.
I understand. Okay.
I think that does clarify it. I think one thing just for us as a group to be thinking about is just, we're also collecting dollars over time, right? So these variables are changing. I think one thing would be, internally projecting out where we think the fund balance will be at different points in time, and maybe that would be something that would be interesting to just monitor, because once again, it just goes back to, it's part perception and it's part reality, where, this is public money and people want to see where it's going, and if we, need additional disclosures perhaps somewhere about reserve projects, or just to lay it out for people where the money is going to go, I just want to make sure that we're looking at that. So one thing could just be, okay, over time, this is what we expect to happen in rough numbers with the fund balance, so that ideally we're not carrying a ton there for too long of a period of time.
Like a projection looking forward, like a snapshot.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
one of the primary reasons that this exhaust group exists is to ensure that those promises made to the voters when the surtax was approved by the voters were accomplished. And there was a plan that was in place at that point in time in broad strokes as to how that money was going to be spent. I think we need to have some kind of report that would start to compare what did we promise to voters and what have we accomplished since then. And that'll show you where the intended purposes for that quote-unquote fund balance will be. That many of these things are capital projects, and by nature, that the design, there's conceptualization, projects that will come along, such as the Sawgrass exit at the arena. Those types of projects are you know, they don't reflect on your balance sheet because they're just at a planning stage at this point in time. They aren't monies that are committed. You've got the capital budget, that's a 5-year program, if I'm correct, which also shows how that money will flow over time. So I agree that, you know, when you look at an $850 million fund balance, you say, whoa, we can do all these new things, but over the 30-year plan of the program, that money has already been promised. Now we need to ensure that we keep those promises.
Yeah. Ms. Wallace.
Yes, and I would like to add that the county expects to apply for and receive federal money for some of the capital projects, but in order to be eligible to receive federal funds for capital, we have to have funds available, a source of revenue, a dedicated source of revenue to cover operations and maintenance, because the federal government won't cover that. Generally, a capital investment grant will be 80% federal money and 20% local money for capital improvements, but then the agency is responsible for the total cost of operations and maintenance, and so part of these funds would have to be available for that.
And, I think this is just spurring on questions, and one of the questions would be to me, in a very simple way, and we probably have that, is, okay, we got 850 this year, we might have $1 billion and change next year, might even grow some more, and as we're going through those years, projecting forward, that's when we're gonna kick off I'm just gonna make up projects, okay, because light rail, east to west light rail project, or high-speed bus project, and it includes operation money too, and just kind of see where this balance is gonna bounce along, and just make sure we're on track. You know, I think that's what we're really supposed to be looking at. And I know we've got big projects that we're looking at, and you have to have the cash in place to get them beat up. So I think that's what everybody's asking, but anyway, do we have any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question on financial statements. Do we need to approve those at this point in time? No. As I understand it, your agreement is terminated as of this year's audit, and that there is a new selection process underway. And I understand that RSM has been ranked #1 by the committee to extend their contract agreement. Is that correct?
Yes, there was a new process, and we've been recommended under the new process.
Which is in the process of being negotiated by the appointed committee that will then go to the board for approval.
Correct. My understanding, I think it's next month.
And I don't know if this question goes to the county CFO or the county auditor, but one of the areas that I have expressed a desire for in the past, and I think the committee had been generally supportive of that, was as an attempt to have the partnered SBE firm in a position of spending enough time on this part of the audit that they could express an opinion on these financial statements for this committee. Since the overall Surtax program has a major commitment relative to MBE commitment of, 30%, I believe is the number, and I think this contract was pre-existing, and it had a 25%, I think, SPDE requirement. And just to see if there's a possibility, and as you negotiate and as you move forward with the work program, that you try to devote enough time for the SBE part of the engagement to express an opinion, and while preserving your opinion on the total financial statements of the county. Is that something that can be considered?
Well, we could definitely discuss with them. Obviously, it'd have to be mutually agreed with the county, but we could talk.
Right, sure. But I think, trying just to reinforce the proportion or the sharing of the cost of that by this particular account does deserve some effort to move forward on that potential contract negotiation.
Okay.
I don't know, would you take that back then to the county auditor and the CFO to see if that can be factored into their negotiations before that contract goes forth to the board?
do we have a motion? Did you make a motion to approve the audit?
No, I
This
don't
isn't-
think, I didn't ask for an emotion. I don't see the motion as necessary. I think it
Oh,
was
I-
just the communications
No?
that,
Right, no, this is not an
desire.
action item.
unless
Oh,
the commi-
okay.
unless there are members of the committee that has concerns
No.
relative to that direction.
Oh, guess we're good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Cycle 3 municipal capital project update.
And if I could, Mr. Chair, to the Oversight Board members while the MPO sets up, I did just want to let you know that when we meet in August for our budget workshop and the approval of the 5-year plan, that we will be also bringing you back the internal dashboard so that you can see the progress towards funding projects that were in the original plan. And you will also get a perspective on the commitments of projects over the next 5 years. And hopefully it will answer some of your questions with respect to the reserves.
Climb up first.
Yes. I think she's gonna come clean that.
Go the wrong way. There we are. Oh,
Sorry.
that's okay. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. It's all good.
Attention. Thank you.
Of course. Good morning, everyone. So, Bryan Caletka will not be joining us because he is crossing the Atlantic on a cruise. So he sent the second team, then the B team. So Todd, Brauer with Whitehouse Group, and I have a distinguished colleague here, Kat, who's going to be the star of the show later on. Oh, did I do that? It's my excitement. There we go. Thank you. But I actually want to talk about that and open it up with the idea of the star of the show, because Kat is actually going to give you a lot of information about the application, and so she very much is going to be one of the stars. But it's also the people that are not here that I want to mention as well, and those are the municipal staff. They are also the stars, because Kat has been working with them over the last 2 to 3 months to get some really great applications together. And so we're going to talk a little bit about those applications, but I also want to highlight the great work that Angela's team did, because one of the things that we learned from last year was let's get them talking about eligibility early and often. And Gretchen was there to make sure that all the meetings, the workshops were well attended. So I have to say, these are really the stars of the show. Kat will give you the overview of the application process, what we got back from the cities, but it was really all the good work that they were doing to really make this a success, because I think you're going to be very excited to see some of the figures that we're going to be presenting to you later. So I'm going to start, though, with the overarching, what is our gospel? What is the code by which we check everything? And so working with Angela and her team, it is that Second Amendment. That is what we all agreed to and how we conduct our business, which our focus then from the MPO perspective is to make sure that we are ranking and recommending per the requirements of the Second Amendment, which also means, though, that we also interact with the municipalities in a certain way, too, that we're making sure that we're doing that early and often. But there are 7 key factors that are laid out in the Second Amendment that when we go and open up this cycle, that we make sure that we're including. So it's all about eligibility. It's making sure that we're talking about their funding needs, what funding they have available, leveraging of funds. Also, how are we going to rank them? How are we going to evaluate them? What kind of information are we looking for to make sure that we have applications that we can actually evaluate and be able to feel confident that we can recommend to this group and recommend to the MAP administration by June 1st that could go into the 5-year plan. So this is the order in which we look at them. There are 7 pieces, and throughout our presentation, you're going to see these numbers pop up, because what we like to always emphasize is we're making sure that we're hitting all of these requirements as we go along. So I start with the overall flow chart of what our process is. So you'll see the numbers collate then with each one of the requirements that we go through. You'll see a couple changes from what we did last year in the process too. Because what we learned right away was we need to talk about eligibility early. We need to get on top of it. So we changed the application process. We changed the online portal to allow for a preliminary eligibility review to occur immediately. And Angela and her staff was right on it. They had quick turnarounds. I think most turnarounds were within 24 to 48 hours for any kind of review. What's that?
Same day sometimes.
Same day sometimes. And particularly as we got towards the end of it, we were doing our best to do same day. But we go through the process of opening up the application period. We've met with everybody before that had even occurred, because one of the things that we asked for them to do is to meet with us to get their password to get into the system. So we become that gatekeeper to say, you need to talk to us about what your needs are before we're going to start putting out the applications. Once they start then building those applications, we have a 3-step process. Let's check the eligibility. The great thing about it too is everybody then gets the notes. So within their individual setup, they actually get the notes from us and from the county saying, hey, we need more clarification here, and it's all documented. So everything is transparent and there for them to go back and look at, hey, how could we do this a little better? What do we need? What are they looking for? What are the eligibility requirements? We also then look at support and commitment. We look at things like resolutions of support, whether they own the right of way, and then their funding and implementation plan. And that's the big part of what Kat was involved in and is going to give you the rundown of it. They then can choose to submit the application or not. So it can stay within the database. It's available to them 365, 24/7. So at any time they could go through that process. So they can choose to submit it, or if they want to wait till next year, that they can do that. Then it allows us to then go through, we take that to Angela's team. Is there any eligibility questions that we had come up? Once it's deemed fully eligible, then we do our evaluation, our ranking, which then puts us through the process of how do we recommend. And we are committed as an MPO to recommend projects that are ready to go, that we know. And again, if you recall when I was here in November, I said, buckle up, we're going to be delivering some projects. That's what we've really been focusing on, is making sure that we can build applications that we can recommend and feel comfortable that we can start chipping away at that $850 million that's available. Now, again, that has its own constraints, so that's part of the MAG, so we don't get to chip away at all of it. But I can say, though, that we've also been very pleased to see the commitment from the commission to pay for so many things that were above the MAG. So we're seeing a lot of things moving forward. But I can give you that commitment that that's really what we're here for, is to make sure that we're recommending great projects to you. So we go through that process, looking at the application, and then by June 1st or earlier, we then give that to the MAP administration. So that's the overall process. We've already gone through the applications. We've gone through the reviews. We've gone through the primary evaluation. Will be ranking, and then we've been working with the county administrator, Monica, to make sure that she's comfortable with the process, because every year we present that to the county administrator, say, hey, this is what we'd like to do for ranking and recommending. We've gone through that process, and we're hoping to get approval very soon here, and we have automated it, so once we hit go, we can hit go on the computer and begin that evaluation process. So what Kat's going to do then is give you a synopsis of what kind of applications are we dealing with. So what will we be ranking and recommending for the next year? So Kat, I will turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Kat. Thank you, Todd, for the introduction. I have been working relentlessly with municipal staff over the past several months. I'm extremely pleased to inform you that this application cycle was very successful with the outreach and engagement with the cities. We've got favorable outcomes. We've basically more than doubled the eligible applications submitted in this year's cycle. So as he explained, one of the biggest differences in this year's application is we included a preliminary eligibility review with the Surtax General Counsel's team. From there, the MPO is responsible for the next 2 reviews, and we verify commitment and support from the public, as well as the implementation plan.
I have a question.
Yes.
Only 20 municipalities submitted this time around, is it? That's out of 30,
Well,
29,
it's 29. The municipalities that didn't participate expect to participate next year. They just had other issues that they had to deal with, for the most part.
I do have a caveat to add to that, though. That's 20 municipalities that had submitted an eligible project. That was actually a huge increase from what we had seen before. So it's a 64% increase from last year, where we only had 12 municipalities that had eligible projects. So it was a huge increase in the number of participants. But as Kat had said, she reached out to every one of them. They're either still working on the application to get to an eligible project.
So how many of the 20 that submitted are eligible?
All of those of the 20, they have an eligible
Okay.
application. Oh,
Yes.
there we go.
So 20 municipalities submitted over 100 applications in total this cycle. As you pointed out, of the 100, 67 of them are traffic calming projects. But that was a big change from last year. Through guidance and coordinating with the Surtax General Counsel, we basically got a clearly defined criteria or parameters for traffic calming. So we worked with the municipalities over the past the past couple months in educating them on what are eligible traffic calming projects. And this is the outcome. But the good news is that there's still a good mix of new and expanded roadway projects that are still in the mix. So we still expect to have a diverse set of projects in the Municipal Capital Projects Program. So most of the projects, most of the applications were requesting design phase funding, and in addition to construction. But there were very few projects that were requesting design build and construction phase only. We're going to be working in the next year to educate them on the benefits of design build. But the good news is that the fact that most of the applications are requesting design phase funding, it's indicative of projects that are more ready to go than not. And they're going to be more ready for implementation than projects that are requesting planning phases. Although eligible application submissions have increased significantly, there's still work to be done. A little bit more than half of the applications had a resolution support submitted at the time the application closed on April 8th. However, there's still more time for these municipalities to submit the documentation. The cost estimate we proposed in this evaluation, the improved evaluation and ranking criteria, that it's basically integrated into the evaluation to capture projects that are shovel ready. The good news is that over half of the projects are at preliminary design cost levels, so it's indicative that they're going to be ready for at least implementation within the next 5 years. Oops. And I'll go ahead and pass it to Todd to discuss the evaluation.
So again, that's the overview of the applications that we received. Like I said, a huge increase. Last year we had 42 eligible applications. We have 100 this time. So we took the job of ranking them and recommending them very seriously. So we went through the Second Amendment in working with Angela's team to make sure that we had primary criteria as we looked at these projects that really focused on the project type. So as Kat had mentioned to you, we began to really focus on what kinds of projects are we looking for. So the 3 projects were new roadways or bridges, expanded roadway or bridges, or traffic calming. So we made sure to highlight those as part of our primary criteria, but we didn't want to forget all the other elements that related to it, including looking at what was the municipality's highest priority: climate change, resiliency, those areas that are underserved traditionally. Also looking at construction readiness, applicant performance. So all of those things are going into the mix as we review these applications to make sure that they meet every one of those aspects. We also do look at cost per mile and get some kind of indication of how well are they aligning up to the cost estimates, because one of the things that Kat was saying that we were so pleased with was having so many that were at the level of preliminary engineering, because that actually helps all of us. It helps Angela's team to be able to actually review it to see what kind of eligibility, how much surtax funding is available, but it also checks us to be able to see, is it really construction ready and ready to go? So we were really pleased about being able to include that as part of the process. So our next steps are that ranking and recommendation. So once we get the approval from the county administrator, from Monica, our first job is going to be ranking them. We rank them off of that criteria, the primary and secondary criteria, and then recommending within the MAG. And I believe that the MAG should be available sometime in mid-May. We also gave municipalities an opportunity, because we wanted to make sure that they got their cycle in. We gave them until May 14th to give us a resolution of support from their commissions so we can verify that, yes. So for those municipalities that are listening out there that are working on it, make sure to get your resolutions of support in, because that's going to be one of the key factors is what we use for the recommendation process. So that in a nutshell is where we're going and where we have been.
Ms. Pennant.
Thanks.
Well,
If you can just go back to the slide before.
Oh.
Can you just go back to the slide before? Could you?
This
the
one here?
The one before that.
This one here.
Can you highlight for us some of the changes? I know we made some recommendations. I see safety is one of them. What were
Yep.
some of the changes from last year?
Yeah, so you're going to see a big change from last year. And we'll start with the primary criteria. So there we focus on the project types themselves. So again, if it adds capacity, we're looking at a new roadway, or excuse me, a roadway where they're expanding the lanes. So they're adding laneage, they're reconfiguring their intersections. They may be also expanding a bridge. That occurs in some cases as well. Then with the connectivity, that's a new road. So the focus that we really looked at was the commission had said we have two major goals with this program: alleviate congestion and increase connectivity. We made sure that that was front and center in this primary criteria. So those were the two things that we looked at first, was does it meet that? So by adding capacity, you're looking at alleviating congestion. By enhancing connectivity, that's a new roadway to complete our system. Now, we are unique in the sense that we have the Atlantic Ocean and we have the Everglades on each side of us. We're a fairly built-out county, but there are still options to fill the gaps of the network that we have. But then with the improving safety, that allowed us to look at then traffic calming. And working with Angela's team, we found information from Federal Highway. We got USDOT guidance as to what constitutes traffic calming projects. Those became the primary criteria. The secondary then that we really focused on was beefing up the construction readiness and the applicant performance side of it too, because now we have more information about how our project's moving along, where have there been challenges in the 5-year plan. And so then we can move towards looking at things like, do we have a cost estimate that we can really review, so that way they can make sure that they can get to a funding agreement? Because that was really the mindset that we changed very much in what we had done before, is what's going to get us to that funding agreement? How do we get there as quickly as possible? What does that information, what detail do we need for it? So those were the big changes that we did, because we wanted to make sure what we were recommending could move forward and Angela's team could get an agreement with them.
Right, thank you. I just wanted us to recount that to make sure that, because I know we made some recommendation, and I just wanted to make sure that nothing was missed.
Yep. Well, because we're going to have another
Thank
one
you.
too for you all next year, because I've been working with Gretchen to look at geographic equitability. So I've been building a separate model on that, because we want to make sure that obviously the money is distributed as well as we can. That's going to be one of the features that we do for this next year too, because we do want this to evolve. And if anything, I've got to commend this team. As we've learned lessons, we've been able to apply them. And that was something that we talked about this year, that for the next year, we're going to want to include with that.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman,
Oh, I'm sorry, Phil, and then Gretchen.
one of our concerns over the last 18 months or whatever has been projects that are not proceeding for one reason or another. Everything from lack of eligibility, significant funds were assigned and approved in projects that then turned up not to be eligible. Those projects, many of which are still encumbered as you know, commitments of the fund, but there is no project happening because the city has not formally terminated the agreement. A couple points or questions. Before you rank, will you require that the elected body approve these projects to get it on the public record for those cities that are submitting these projects, that somebody from an elected official perspective or the body is tracking those things, so that it doesn't become us, you know, blowing the whistle saying there's a problem here, that their staff is reporting and accountable to their elected officials?
So the short answer to that is yes, and that is actually in here. When we look at the applicant performance, we're looking at project delivery, we're looking at awards, so we're looking at the number of project funding agreements that have been executed, but also checklists. But also importantly, we don't move anything forward unless there's a resolution of support. So the public support here that you see up top.
Resolution support, in your mind, is an official position of that
Yes, it must be required
body.
that the governing body then has approved that project. And the nice thing about this is working with Angela's team, we let them know whether they were eligible before that even went to their commission. So that was one of the changes that we made.
As you then evaluate and rank these projects, where is past performance? How does that enter into, particularly for cities that are sitting on millions of dollars of funds for projects that are not eligible?
So we have 3 areas here, and there's actually 6 total secondary criteria that we look at relative to that. Construction readiness deals with the idea of having that resolution of support, having the right-of-way, making sure you have environmental clearances. But we also have 3 that is applicant performance as well. So that is inherently, and it is the strongest weight that we're looking at relative to that. So we are taking that very seriously. As I said to you, the commitment of the MPO was to get you things that we could recommend that could move forward. That's why we've made that the biggest part of the secondary criteria.
So if I could, I'm going to focus in on the project performance. Specifically, this board asked that project performance be expanded and that the definition include whether or not a municipality was submitting the required documents through a checklist, whether it be a planning, design, or construction phase checklist to legal for a project that had been awarded. So there's a project delivery, which is the first. Thank you so much, Todd. So there's project delivery, and
Sorry,
that
I was trying
means
to
that.
highlight it. There we
Thank
go.
you. You're doing a great job. Project delivery is a municipal project is already under agreement. Is it performing? Is it complying with the contractual terms? But then what we added was awards. It's a little misleading. What that means is you've received an award letter for a project, and have you submitted the required documentation to get under project funding agreements? And that was something specifically requested by this body in writing and submitted to the county. And so those are both being evaluated and weighted very strongly. And then the third is what is a more subjective criteria. And as I mentioned to each of you in your individual briefings, we want to bring all of this back to you when you have your workshop in August and kind of deep dive into it to make sure that it's what you're looking for future cycles. But that is a more subjective criteria where we look at staff turnover, some of the factors that may have influenced both project delivery and the ability to submit documentation, and some of that, is staff turnover. It's a variety of different factors, including the level of resource of that particular municipality.
Mr. Kuhlman?
Yeah, Gretchen, these criteria are fine, but can a project in this group get approval if they have a project before that's hasn't completed, is holding us up? Because you can have all these suggestions, but as far as I'm concerned, there ought to be a little thing that says, if you're in the other stage and you haven't performed or something's missing and you're holding us up, you don't get a right to even go to the next step.
So that is in your purview, right? When we bring these projects to you and we bring you the 5-year plan in August, and we give you the detail on project performance, including, Angela just whispered to me, the issue that Mr. Allen brought up, which is your project's been deemed ineligible, but you have not formally withdrawn the project. We cannot say with absolute certainty that there won't be a municipal project that gets recommended for funding in the new 5th year 2027 that has not submitted a checklist. And this goes to what I mentioned to each of you individually and that I want to say on the record. There are municipalities that have 5 or 6 projects that have been awarded, and they might have submitted their checklist for 4 of those, and they might have 2 projects under project funding agreements that are going just fine. And then there are 2 projects that they haven't submitted anything for. And so it's gray. It's not a black or white issue. So they might be performing in, the vast majority of the projects that they've been awarded, but not others, and there might be reasons for that.
If you bring this list to us and you identify the municipalities that are, let's call them problem children, do we have the ability to make that ineligible?
No. So if I may.
I mean, are there any teeth in this thing or not?
No. So statutory eligibility. So eligibility is a determination that it complies with the requirements of the statute. And in Section 3 of the Second Amendment, the global ILA. So if it meets that criteria, it's eligible. So your recommendations so you also monitor performance. So eligibility is a different thing, but you can make recommendations with regard to the lack of performance of particular projects from particular municipalities.
But we would have that ability to recommend to the commission that this project something changes.
I, for one, when it comes time to rank projects, am not inclined to approve any project for a jurisdiction, no new project for jurisdiction that have not taken the steps necessary to get an existing application moving or have withdrawn that from further consideration.
Well, there you go. You got
Now,
two of you on
I
that.
think that'll be up to each member here
That's right.
relative to the ranking process, and I'm not going to approve it if in fact they have not withdrawn those projects.
Yeah, well, and so that, we have that, right? And I hear you guys, I think we've made great progress, okay? And I think that they've heard us, and at the end of the day, though, we can't control what the cities and the MPO do totally. There's gonna be, like you said, the stuff that's gonna get applied for that may not meet all the requirements. We're gonna have to take a look at them, case-by-case basis, and decide. To me, what matters is I wanna keep, and maybe we've got that information, maybe we've gone over it 100 times, but we show up 5-6 times a year, okay? And if we have to be reminded, I want to also, the big money is in the county projects, okay? I just want to be reminded what those are and that these are coming down the pike. We got $850 million and we're going to put it in this, 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 and this. And I think that says a lot more. And the progress we made with the MPO and the cooperation I think we're going to get in the future. And watching out for what do you call them, the bad kids? What do you call them? The problem children? So watching out for them is important too. But at our next meeting, I would love to know what's in store for us on that $850 million. And then I have one other question, and it relates to this. You got traffic calming as a criteria. I am concerned because we're trying to increase flow, right? The planning side of this, when you calm traffic, it's very good for the pedestrian, very good for the neighborhood that you're doing the calming in. It provides safety, which is a criteria, and I don't disagree that we shouldn't do it, especially in certain places. But you have to provide alternative routes for traffic in which to avoid the traffic calming area for folks that are trying to get home or trying to get from point A to point B. Let's say we put speed bumps on Andrews Avenue through downtown. No, let's just say that that's the traffic calming device. And we reduced it down to 2 lanes and turned it into a retail street. Well, then you need to provide something on alternative routes that increases mobility, either through light rail or through a rapid bus on that particular street, maybe? I don't know. But as we start planning traffic calming, I really think we need to be thinking about what are those alternative routes in and around that traffic calming area that are going to alleviate congestion.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Chair, I have a question too, but go ahead.
Are you going to go with what I just talked about, or
No,
should we
yeah, I
hear-
was gonna just add on to that
Okay.
very quickly because I had a similar thought.
Because
in
I
my
do
mind.
want the reaction.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
so
go.
so do I, and I had a similar thing in my mind that I wanted to get the MPO's take on one thing, which is how can we build more innovation into this and change, right? Like I'm all for the corridors, I'm all for widening Oakland. We can make Oakland 12 lanes. The reality is we have to get to the point where some of the cars come off the street. And in South Florida, I know I've said this a million times in here, it's just something I'm very passionate about. We have the dollars. We need like a model program to show that this can actually work. If you look at what's happening in Fort Lauderdale, forever, the Searstown area, let's say, hey, people are gonna move in here. This is gonna be the future. It took a while, but it's there now. So, and that's just one area, but it's just one of the most congested areas that I see in the county where we can really show something like this. And I agree, traffic calming on its own is like sharrows. Just because you put a sharrow there doesn't mean it's safe for a biker to be on that street. It kind of does nothing. I feel that way about traffic calming. You push the problem to another street, right? And the real solution here is interconnecting these modalities and getting people re-educated, reacclimated And I will tell you what I see. I mean, I'm in my mid-40s. The people younger than me, they really are open to this. I don't think they're getting totally communicated with, but I will tell you, they're really open to it. They're more willing to take an Uber. They don't want to own cars. If we throw something in front of them, you know, and it's encouraging that the Bright Line is open all the time again now. I just went down there for the Bitcoin conference and some other stuff and just avoided all that traffic. They got a train every hour again now. They're empty. So I just want to throw that out there on top of what the chair was stating.
Ms. Pennant, did you?
So, piggyback on what you're saying, when I think of improving safety, I wasn't necessarily thinking solely about traffic calming. There are intersections in Broward County that there is an inordinate amount of accidents. And I would like us to look at that. I can tell you, I live in the Woodlands Golf and Country Club. And I'm telling you, at Woodlands Boulevard and Commercial, I've never lived anywhere where I saw so many accidents. A minimum of 2 accidents at least every week. So I'm interested in us looking at areas where there is higher than normal levels of accidents, and how can we improve those intersections, because I know something needs to be done. And I've spoken to the city about it, and you know, I'm really gonna go crazy about this now because it's such a dangerous intersection. So there's that issue. And to your point, Shay, FAU and Broward College are both working on a project that was funded by a nonprofit, and I won't say it out loud, but they are working with students to help them become more acclimated with rail and so on and so forth. And I would like at some point, if they could come and maybe do a small presentation to the board, just so we can kind of see how we plan for the future rail travelers in, from Palm Beach to Broward County. I think that's something that we should hear about. And that's it.
Okay, before you answer this, I gotta add something to it now because of everything I heard from these folks. Great points. I think that traffic calming should come with a requirement, some sort of traffic study that says, this is how we are adding the traffic calming, and this is where the flow is gonna go, and this is how we are alleviating congestion by moving these vehicles. You know, like a study of some sort. If you're gonna do traffic calming, you better study the area, because you might be putting it on someone else's. So tell me how we're.
Well, Angela, do you want to launch about the restrictions, and then I can talk about the perspective? Or you want me to go ahead? Okay, good.
Pretty complex.
All right, so one of the challenges that we'll have, and I'll call it a challenge, with this program, though, is we're limited to 3 types of projects that we can look at. New roads, expanded roads, which meaning adding a lane or changing a configuration, and it's what the cities bring to us, and then traffic calming. So ultimately, that is the scope of the projects that we look at.
Gotcha.
So that is one of the challenges that we have, because ultimately, from an MPO perspective, don't disagree with you. And it's important to note, too, that when we looked at the primary criteria, we did not count traffic calming as high, because we agree with you. When we looked at the commission, alleviating congestion and connectivity, traffic calming does not hit that. So it will not be weighted at the same level. The challenge that we're going to have, though, is that we are going to run out of projects because we're a built-out county. There's not many places, and there's not many cities that want to expand their lanes, or there's not many new roadways to do it. So it is a issue that we are examining now to make sure, but again, within the constraints of this program, those are the 3 types of projects that we can rank and look at.
Okay, so if, let's say, there's a road off Sunrise called Sunset Boulevard or something, right? There, it kind of comes off Sunrise and goes to 441, or University, goes to University. That road right there, that'd be a great street for traffic calming, probably already has it, but I'm just thinking, meanwhile, Sunrise could have something on it that helps move the traffic if that particular parallel road was added, traffic calming was part of a plan that they came to you with, and I don't think it's it's on the city too. I just think it's on the whole program to be looking at the applications that are coming from the MPO and say, hey, we're getting a lot of traffic calming requests here, and let's illustrate that it's okay. Traffic calming is being done between Broward and Commercial or Hollywood. But we've got in the future these rapid transit projects planned. We've got smart intersections planned for Broward all the way west. And so if they're doing calming here, we got it covered here. And that's, to me, that's just like taking all the pieces of information and then letting the county, as the planner of the county, to say, we got it covered, okay? And that should be part of our application. Like if someone comes in and says, I want to do traffic calming, as the Surtax Board and as the county, we say, okay, well, they want to do it here. In the future, we have this planned and this plan. We got it covered. I think that's how it has to go. It can't just be behoove. Just can't put it on the city that's making the application or the MPO. It has to be a comprehensive approach to doing all these things.
When, as you mentioned before, because as Gretchen had said, there's going to be an interest in federal money. Now you're entering into the MPO world. And that's where the MPO, and I know that the MPO is committed to working with the county to looking at those things. The MPO will be starting their new long-range plan process, so the MTP, and that will be part of it. So I know that we've already had conversations with the county about the systems plan. What does that look like? Because I also agree, when I moved here from DC and took my daughter on Tri-Rail, she's like, okay, where's our connection? Like, she was dumbfounded at the level of transit here.
Right.
So I completely understand. She was 8 at the time going, what is happening? So that's why she's going to university up in the Northeast, because she's like, I can take transit. She doesn't need a car.
Right.
So you have a very good point. So that's where we're going to intersect with that, is through the MPO process and working with them to make sure that we can look for that federal money, because they'll pay 80% of capital. That's where the MPO can really help with that.
Ms. Wallace.
Thank you, Chair. All right, so to kind of piggyback on what everyone says and try and summarize it. So the MPO process involves municipal capital projects, and those are defined in the Second Amendment. The county, under the Second Amendment, is responsible for ranking and recommending rehab and maintenance projects. So your roadway drainage and your road resurfacing and those types of maintenance, rehabilitation and maintenance projects that the cities are interested in doing are really rehab and maintenance. And with regard to certain roads, those are not, like the state roads are not within our purview. So when we start talking about Sunrise Boulevard or Commercial that are, yeah, right. So we have no control over that. So that's not a part of this process. Right. So rehab and maintenance and state roads are, so unless the municipality can obtain permission from the state or the county to make changes on a state or county road, which they would have to document through the municipal, through this application process, they wouldn't be able to do that.
And that's actually on our criteria too. If they don't own it, they have to get permission.
Right. And so with regard to relieving congestion, I think everyone's saying, so mass transit is the mechanism by which that is accomplished. And, that's the way it's accomplished in larger metropolitan areas, and we need to get there because that takes people off of the roads and allows people to travel in mass, right, with fewer vehicles. So, but transit is under the county's purview. So that wouldn't be involved in this process either.
No,
So,
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying from a planning perspective, if we're getting a bunch of traffic calming projects coming in, let's say at 10 different roads that are city roads throughout the county, but that those now are pushing cars onto county or state roads, okay, in which we may have some things planned that nobody knows about, we should probably just amplify the fact that, well, these are coming and that's okay. That's all I'm saying. We gotta work together, put it that way. Mr. Kuhlman.
Agreed.
Yes, on page 17, on the ranking criteria, can I assume that under improved safety is where you're dealing with bicycle? Because there's nothing, Jay, you might be interested in this. Where are we improving? This is all to improve mobility, and it's not just cars, so sidewalks, bike paths, is that where that comes in?
bike lanes can be designed as part of a road improvement project within the right-of-way of the road. There's not going to be a separate bike lane or bike path project. There has to be a road improvement.
No, it's part of it, but
Correct.
when they're evaluating the projects, do the bike lanes get recognized as improvements to mobility.
So bike lanes can be designed with the road improvements that are incorporated in
Right.
this list.
But because there's no, it's not mentioned here, I assume it would fall under safety improvements. Or are you only concerned about the cars, people in car safety?
So it can be incorporated as part of a road improvement project, and most of them are. So the road improvements that are, the applications that include road improvements can include, and a lot of them do request funds that allow
Okay.
design for bike paths as part of the road improvement project, bike lanes.
Whether we like it, Fort Lauderdale and this region are known as the worst bicycle in the world, okay? So I would hope that we're doing something, what we can, related to all the money we're spending for mobility improvements to make sure that bicycles are not excluded. But I don't, because I don't see the words.
You're not going to see the words as a bike lane project as a standalone project.
I'm not talking about a
right?
bike lane project. I'm talking about bike lanes as part of this overall picture. Look at the big thing. Bike lanes need to get into that picture.
They are.
Okay.
Yeah, about 75% of the applications that we received for traffic calming included bike lanes.
But that's the only place they're showing up. Okay.
That's not entirely true. We actually had a couple that were extended. They were expanding at a lane and they were adding a bike lane as well.
One
So it's
other
not the only
question.
place.
On page 18, funding recommendations made by the MPO may not exceed the available MAG, and I assume that's because that's up to the county to exceed the MAG.
Correct. So the Second Amendment requires the MPO's funding recommendations to be within the MAG, and only after the county administrator requests
I just want,
project
I was giving the county
recommendations.
some credit.
Ms. Bennett.
Just real quick, I wanted to piggyback on what Alan said earlier regarding that global planning concept. I'm asking that we keep that in mind for East stations as well, because I remember last year we had one city that wanted to do East stations, but it was like a one corner of their city. And I think that is also a project that needs to have a global perspective, because if you have an e-car and you're on the west side, by the time you get to the east side, if there are no East stations, you may be out of gas, for lack of a better word.
And that is part of the MPO process. So again, we're updating the long-range plan, the MTP, every 3 to 4 years. Kind of depends on what your air quality is. Right now, we're good. But there's a full commitment to be working with the county on those larger pieces. Because the MPO does have a current transit plan for 2021 to give kind of a concept of what transit could look like. But I know the county is going to be working on theirs or are working on it, and we're certainly excited to see that and see how we can incorporate that into, as you've said, the regional perspective.
Any other questions?
I was just going to add that I think also too that this conversation is a great one, and it often does get turned into like bikes kind of versus cars, or just putting them in those categories, right? But I will also point out that we're building for a long-term future here, and if you kind of look at what's happening in this space, I know the scooters did not go particularly well here and in a lot of places because these vendors came in and they just dumped them down, and they also weren't built super stable, and I don't think they were very safe. That being said, you know, micro electric vehicles are definitely coming. Like there's going to be these, you know, look at how many people use golf carts now and that sort of thing. I think smaller vehicles and ways to get around are going to be on the way, and so it will be that infrastructure too, right? It's not just bikers, and it's also not just, I think when people think of bikers, they often think of these people that are going out, you know, with the full kit and just like hardcore bikers and, you know, whatever the case may be. And I think about it more in terms of the people I see trying to commute and actually get places, and it's so expensive to live here. And I think about it more like that. And then there's also like this, what could be like bicycle tourism, right? I mean, you know, certain areas in South Florida could have a lot of opportunities. So just want to throw those kind of nuances out there real quick.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Really
Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
all your work to help improve the whole program. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Hey, you guys, I have to run out, okay? I'm turning it over to our favorite vice chair, Doug Kuhlman, and I'll see you in a little while, okay? Just got to run out. You have to call him chair?
Gretchen, are we ready for part 3, municipal project status? Or are we doing the green infrastructure?
Mr. Anton is here to do the green infrastructure and the Sinovoid Bridge.
Good morning. My name is Anton. I'm with Public Works, and I'm going to talk to you about 2 projects, the innovative methods to rehab bridges, and also, first and foremost, the green infrastructure, stormwater drainage project for Broadview Park. So this moves forward. Okay. Still trying to learn this. I'm an engineer. I wear glasses. I'm Asian. I'm supposed to be good with computer, but I'm really not. So you got to bear with me. Plus, I'm also trying to get over a cold here. So the first project is for Broadview Park. The goal here is that we were trying to turn $5 million surtax fund into $21.7 million, which is the cost of this project. And the grant that we were going after is the HUD grant that is administered by the Florida Department of Economic Development. So the first time around, we didn't have any matching fund. We did not win the project. However, in talking to the reviewers, they told us they really liked the project, mainly because of the innovative process that we're trying to do and an embrace of the green infrastructure of our project. So they encourage us to go after some matching fund, which you found it eligible and the board approved. Excuse me for a second here. Thank you. I caught a cold, and by the way, it's not COVID. I tested twice, so we're all good. So what they like about our project was the innovative nature and embrace. So the way the grant work is that you get up to 100 points. And then after that, depending on how much matching fund the county is committed to or the entity is committed to, you get up to 10 points. So in order to get that 10 extra bonus points, we had to do 50% matching, which in our case would have been about $11 million or so. We felt very comfortable about our project, so we elected to go with a lesser percentage. So essentially, we gave all the other team a 6-point head start. The good news is we did win the project. So the project is for Broadview Park. It's a project of regional significance. So in Broadview Park, there's 700 acres. 50% of the folks that live in there are minimum to moderate income. And all the stormwater in there is connected to the New River Canal and then eventually go into the ocean. So what is the problem? The problem is there's a lot of flooding. And there's a lot of pollution that comes with stormwater because this system was built decades ago and is based on the normal process that we've done in the past, which is, asphalt that is not pervious. In fact, most of the area is impervious between the roadway system and the sidewalk system. So our thought was that what if we can make most of this area pervious? So what we're trying to do is instead of letting stormwater flow onto the roadway, collect it in a system of inlets and pipe it into the New River Canal, which what we've seen a lot is due to sea level rising and it has tidal influence. A lot of that stormwater gets washed back into the roadway system. So what we're trying to do is make everything more pervious. So, and I don't know if you know, by the way, but it also recharged the aquifer because most of the drinking water supplies in our area actually come from underground that gets pump up, and clean, and it turns into clean water when you turn on your faucet. Well, that system over the years, due to all the impervious in our built-out system, has become, there's a lot of saltwater intrusion. So this will help that as well to recharge the aquifer. So what's the next step for this project? What we're trying to do is we're going to conduct, in fact, we have already conducted a master plan, and our goal there is to first mitigate, and is to mitigate against storms, drainage, tidal influence, and at the same time recharge the aquifer and then reduce pollution and improve the water quality. What's next to be done? We're going to be replacing a lot of the conventional with green infrastructure. And what I mean by that is we're going to be adding bioswale where area where there would have been that we had to replace pipe. For asphalt, we're going to be replacing that with pervious asphalt to allow for the water to percolate through. So essentially, we're going to turn it into a roadway system that's like a sponge. It's just going to absorb the water. The water gets percolate through to the aquifer, and less water gets piped into the New River, causing pollution, and into the ocean. We're also going to be adding, wherever there's broken sidewalk, we're going to be replacing them with pervious sidewalk, and which does essentially the same thing. Which, by the way, one of the grant reviewer pointed out to us that they really like this idea, and not because it's a new idea or anything like that. It's the fact that Broward County has been doing this for quite a while. So part of my job in the division I work for, we've been replacing normal concrete sidewalk with pervious sidewalk for about 7 years now at strategic location of the county. And the idea is we're going to test it out to make sure that we can maintain all these cool ideas that we're putting in. And the good news is, we can maintain them with our own existing forces, by turning things around a little bit and not adding any more money to the budget. Then also we're going to add inline check valves. So what those are is essentially one-way valves, so that there's still going to be pipes, and in order to keep water from coming back into the system, it's just going to be a one-way valve. So when the water needs to discharge, it will go, but water from the New River or other canal cannot back into our system. And then, of course, we're still going to add new stormwater pipe and pump station where we need it, but that's not going to be the focus of the project. Any questions about it before I move on to the bridges?
Yes, does anyone have any questions? Gretchen, I assume this is a county project, right? And it's been approved, meets criteria, and we're leveraging 4-1.
Actually, if I could, you all approved planning money for that project in the amount of $500,000, which was required in order for them to reapply. So you've been seeing this project as it has evolved over the course of about a year. And Synovoid Bridges, which is up next, you've also funded in previous budget cycles.
So is that 5 million going to come out of that 850 million that's an earmark? That reduced the 850? I assume.
Okay, next one, Synovoid Bridges, one of my favorite subjects. So the way bridges gets inspected is the Florida Department of Transportation by state statute inspect every bridges, whether they're bridges or county bridges or city-owned bridges, at the minimum every 2 years. This is one of the FDOT bridge. In 2017, this bridge is in Palm Beach County that's owned by FDOT, and it gets inspected every 2 years, just like all the other bridges at a minimum. And in 2017, there was a partial collapse. Nobody knew why at the time, because they get inspected and repaired, especially FDOT. They take good care of the bridges. For about 2 years, everybody was scratching their head trying to figure out why this bridge had a partial collapse. Fortunately, nobody died, so it didn't make big national news. As it turned out, it's because this bridge that had a partial collapse is what's called a Synovoid bridge. And what are Synovoid bridges? So these are essentially voided slab. They were built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They're very efficient. So essentially, they're 4-foot panel that are long. They get stacked together. They're void in these slabs, and they get tied together by one single rod. That rod gets grouted in. It cannot be inspected after that. And the point there is that all these panels cannot work independently. It cannot handle a large truckload by itself. However, when they're tied together, it becomes a rigid bridge. So it can handle a lot of load. It can be built very cheaply. And in many places around the world and the country, there's also a concrete slab that puts on top of it. In our area, for whatever reason, that wasn't done. And you will see there's a red oval there about that steel rod that we pull out. And that's important because if that steel rod gets rotted out, the whole thing falls apart. There's essentially these panels that do not work together anymore to handle the load, so they start acting independently, which then cause a partial collapse in this case. And in some places that it actually caused major collapse. What's the problem there? It's difficult or if not impossible to inspect because these rods are intricate to the bridge itself. It gets grouted in, so we cannot see it, but over time, as water percolates through, it eats away at the rod. For us, Broward County, we have about 100 bridges total. 39 of them are son-of-a bridges. And some of the conventional methods to fix bridges is hard for us to do, and I'll tell you why in a minute here. So that one of the best way or one of the conventional way to fix this bridge is just, now in order to keep these panels from operating independently, just put a concrete slab on top of it, a continuous concrete monolithic slab, so then it forces all the panel to work together because when the load comes down, it spread it out evenly. Well, some of our bridges are very old. In fact, most of our bridges are about 40 to 50 years old. Some of them are 80 years old. So the additional load for this large concrete slab, it cannot handle. In addition to that, you see the red arrow there? When you add the concrete slab, you have to raise everything up. That's the sidewalk, the traffic barrier on the side. And then if you have to add reinforcement to the bottom column to support the bridge due to this additional load, by the time you slice and dice this bridge apart, you might as well replace some of these bridges. Another method, so that's one. So one way DOT has solved this problem is what's called a near surface reinforcement. So instead of adding this concrete slab, they cut out part of the bridge and put steel rod in between these panels. So essentially you're cutting it out straight line, about 1.25 inches. It cannot go deeper than that because if you cut deeper than that, you're gonna hit the structural steel member inside the bridge. Add in this concrete, these steel rods, seal them up, asphalt it over, waterproof it, you're good to go. Well, the problem with this is, well, the good thing is it doesn't add a lot of weight, but then it also causes a lot of traffic disruption. And then you can only do a little bit at a time, so it takes months to do this. So the production is really low. What we've came up with is essentially to do that, but from the bottom. Now, no one's tried to tackle this before, because if you can imagine, you have this giant concrete saw, and you're cutting in a straight line exactly 1 1/4 inch, and you cut in another 1/4 inch, you're going to hit the steel component of the bridge. And try to do that when you stand on the bottom, on top like that is very difficult, if not impossible. And try to do that when you're standing on a floating work platform is pretty darn close to impossible. Well, we came up with a way to do it, and we worked directly with our contractor and team up with them to partner and show how to do it. And I'll show you a quick video real quick. I think this will work. How do I do the video? There you go. Can I do this? Nice. It's a 3-minute video, and I'll pause it. Stop it right there. This is the key to everything. So in order for us to cut these channels in a perfect alignment, in a perfect depth, we build channels. So the channel gets built, they get measured appropriately, and the saw, when it fits into that channel that we came up with, all it does is you just kind of push it along, not up, not down, just glide it along. And that will cut it in that perfect line, in a perfect depth.
Is there any way to adjust the volume? It's really loud.
Does anyone know how to do that? Adjust the volume.
While we're doing the question, when they do this, do they do the whole bridge, or they evaluate what areas of the bridge need to be done?
When we do this, it's for the entire bridge. Because it's very hard to figure out which rod has been corroded and which rod hasn't been corroded. I'm going to try it again. If it's too loud. Okay, so let me go on. I think I have one more slide. But essentially, this method allows us to construct these, rehab these bridges very cost effectively because we get a lot of production done. We're not blocking traffic at all, except for when we waterproof and resurface. So we ended up actually saving a lot of money, and while at the same time not disrupting traffic while we rehab these bridges. Okay. And in fact, we've completed 4 Sonavoy bridges already using Surtax fund. We've done more, but some of them were funded by gas taxes. Yes, we are. We're using this as a way to try to leverage Surtax fund with more money, trying to turn that $5 million to $20 million again. So.
Bill, did you have a question?
Question, are these tidal canals?
Some of them are tidal canal, yes.
Well, how do you adjust for varying water levels?
So the track itself, it doesn't matter as long as we can get under there, it doesn't matter if the tidal is high or low. The workers will have to stand on higher platform when they need to, but the track itself, when we cut, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Gretchen?
Thanks, Mr. Vice Chair. Did you have a chance to talk at all about the intersections? I thought it might be responsive to Ms. Pennant's question earlier about what the County Public Works Department is doing as far as looking at the most dangerous intersections across the county.
No, we didn't get into it, but I was doing so well, Gretchen. I didn't want to get into that. So what Public Works is doing is we're looking at all the 1,500 signalized intersections throughout the county. And we're working with a team to try to narrow those down to the top 100 intersections that we need to address. And we're using this new algorithm and looking at both capacity and safety. And the goal there is it's a 20-month project duration. However, the way we set it up is after the first 6 months, our team will be able to generate at least narrow down to the top 200 intersection, and then out of those 200 intersection, we will be able to get the top 5 intersection where we need to address that with the worst capacity, that are not safe, and that are feasible for us to make repair to. So idea is we're gonna start picking out these low-hanging fruit first and start fixing them as the project continue on.
So, woodlands and commercial.
I'm pretty sure that's the top 5. No, I'm just kidding.
I have a couple questions. You've done 4 of 29 to date, is that correct?
4 of 39. 4 of 39 using Surtax fund.
So we know what it costs to do one, right?
We do.
How much is that?
I think the last time, if you remember, there was when we did the 5-year plan, there was a bridge project, I think it was 34th Avenue. Originally, it was slated to be $8.6 million. Using this method, we only asked for 3.6, and we were able to do it under that. So it's around $3.5 million or so per bridge. Of course,
Less than half.
less than
So
half.
how much of that money is going to be Surtax money? All of it? Some of it? Part of it?
No, as An was explaining, they come to you for a couple of bridges each fiscal year. They're also using gas tax funds, and they're also pursuing both state and federal funds.
Okay, so then out of the first 4, how much was Surtax or none of it?
No, they did 4 with the surtax, is what he was saying. They've done others with other funding sources.
But the 4 that were with 100% Surtax?
Yes.
So that's 12, 13, $14 million. But we've got 35 more to go.
We have about 30 more to go, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Thank you, everybody.
Just a comment. Thank you. It sounds like you're using the efficiencies that you're able to gain from doing those projects using surtax dollars. You're using that as your leverage to attract new funding?
Yes, we're trying to leverage that. And by the way, some of the contractor we're working with are CBE stuff that we train them how to do this. So we're trying to leverage that as well to try to get additional funding
Awesome.
into the pot.
Awesome. Yes, indeed.
Anything else? Thank you. Have a good day.
Gretchen, do I assume we're going back to municipal project status now?
Yes, we are. Municipal project status update.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the board. Alexander Mayorga, Program Performance Coordinator with Mobility Advancement Program, Brauer, and Lina Silva, Program Project Coordinator. We work very closely with municipalities, and we bring you an update on project funding agreements and project status, which we worked in collaboration with the Surtax Legal Counsel. And it's basically an overview and an update from the latest report back in January. And as we see in the first section there, from our last meeting, we have 10 new project funding agreements, most of them, 8 of them in construction phase, 2 of them in design. Now, these next 2 blue sections towards the middle and the bottom, these show the total now of contracted funds for municipal projects is 42.9 million, and about 10 million of that has been advanced, mainly because right after agreements are signed, most of them go through a solicitation process, so there is some time that we need to wait before we issue these advances. Now, this one shows a little bit of how things have been evolving, and we see that we moved from 28 executed agreements to 38. One could factually deduct here, based on the second bullet point, that 24 agreements that were in draft, now we only have 17. So this number of increase in agreements are driven by a change in those in draft that have been actually executed. I will point out in the bottom of the slide that from 47 that has submitted no checklist on January, we continue to have 43 of them. So no major changes there. And so we, MAP administration, we continue to work with municipalities, encourage them in providing information and any assistance that they may require in terms of information and processes for them to submit the work with Legal County and Surtax Legal County and submitting their completed checklist. There was one project that was found ineligible from January, and projects that are continue to be reviewed remain pretty much the same. One brief note I will make is that after consulting with Surtax Legal Counsel, we have revised the bottom section of our slide, and the deadline to commence construction applies not to 29, but to 9 municipal capital projects, and worth an amount of not 36 million, but 21.2 million. Now, that's basically the update. But in spite of some challenges and delays in the municipalities mainly sending their checklist, we have some successes that we can also bring to you. A couple of projects in Southwest Ranches have been finalized. One drainage project we mentioned to you back in January that was completed on schedule and in budget. Additionally, another resurfacing project also in this town of Southwest Ranches was completed recently, and their third project is also near completion. So these projects are moving very fast and on time and in budget. One thing to mention is that the town has also used local funds to complement Surtax funding to finalize these projects, and you will see that when leverage comes to the board to be presented to you. Now, there's another project in West Park. Their only construction project for which they have an agreement, they saw a cost escalation, and they found additional sources of funds, so they are now leveraging over 25% of the total cost, and this is a project that has a lot of support in the city, very visible, very traveled section in Southwest 25th Street. And we had meetings recently. We are coordinating with the city for signage. They're very excited, and we will bring more updates on this project later on. Projects in Davie, also very visible. They have a project in Davie Road, very well-traveled section, and they're leveraging overall 36% of the total cost of their 2 construction projects, using federal funds and local funds as well. Now, the other project that we want to highlight is Plantation Resurfacing, another very visible project. A lot of construction around the Brauer Mall and very visible from University Drive. The project is moving really fast, and so much that we had to find creative ways to work with signalization. We are using VMS boards because the project moves a lot. So using these boards, we are able to take the signalization wherever the project goes, and they have various sections citywide. So I'm gonna pass it over to Lina.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Lina Silva. So just to give you some more success stories that we're experiencing on the north end of the county, Parkland has a very interesting project. This is, I believe, the first of its kind for municipal capital projects. This is a collaborative project that's working with the MPO, FDOT, the City of Parkland, and Broward County. This past Tuesday, actually, the locally funded agreement was just approved by the county commissioners. So this project remains as a municipal capital project, and you should start seeing construction pretty soon. For Oakland Park, we wanted to highlight this specific project that will be completed soon, actually coming up in June. This was the first of its kind as far as getting the mixed funding sign that you see up there. This city is actually leveraging 25% of the total cost, and they're very excited to complete this very soon. Wilton Manors, we wanted to highlight this city. Even though they're small, they are bringing a lot of leverage into their projects. They currently have 3 executed agreements. We wanted to highlight this specific project because they are bringing 61% in leverage of the total cost. That's a huge amount, so we just really wanted to celebrate that. For Deerfield Beach, we also wanted to bring in a design project that will be they're leveraging 49% of the total cost for this specific project. And this one is anticipated to be completed in January of 2023. So next, we wanted also to discuss and just provide some updates on the cost escalation that has been discussed for Cycle 1 projects. So just as a reminder, the Cycle 1 projects were awarded back in 2020. The municipalities submitted their cost estimates, and of course, with everything that's been going on globally with market conditions and just the time that has elapsed, the cost estimates have experienced some increases. So the municipalities under the Surtax subcommittee for the Broward County City Managers Association met with county representatives back in December. County representatives heard everything that was being discussed, and they proposed that the BCCMA submit their proposal on how we could deal with cost escalations. The BCCMA submitted their proposal, and they indicated that they would like to see an 11.9% for all phases, which would be planning, design, and construction. The county reviewed everything internally. We validated the numbers, and it was determined that a cost escalation of 11.9% would be validated, and this is specific to construction projects only. So these are some of the updates that we wanted to share with you guys.
And if I could, Vice Chair, just, it's up to 11.9% on construction phase projects, and it is going to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis based on detailed justifications provided by the contractors.
Bill, did you have a question? Comment?
Not on this particular item, it's one of the
Mr.
previous comments.
Vice Chair, how did you arrive at 11.9? It seemed really, really high.
It seems really, really high, but it's actually not. There is obviously a range when you're looking at construction projects, roadway projects, and our County Public Works Department has actually been analyzing and maintaining data around the inflation rates that they've been seeing since 2021. So when the municipalities submitted their proposal, we obviously gave it to our public works folks and said, does this line up with what you're seeing? The proposal used statewide inflation rates, including FDOTs, which is at 12%. So that's one of the reasons why using a case-by-case evaluation basis is important. I'll just give you an example. A roadway landscaping project is going to have very different inflationary factors than a fiber optic project or perhaps even a drainage project. So we look at that, but it is actually reasonable, and 11.9% on average for the various types of roadway projects that the municipalities have was validated.
Okay. It just really underscores the fact that we really need to expedite projects that have been approved, because the longer we take, the more costly the project becomes. And so, something to think about.
Bill, your light's on.
Going back to, I guess it's page 40, that was the slide that, I see halfway down, ineligible projects. Have any of those ineligible projects been withdrawn?
There have been some that have been withdrawn, but I don't know that there are any on here. So there are a few municipalities who have formally withdrawn projects. I know Southwest Ranches did, Miramar,
Yeah.
but I don't know that they're captured in that number.
Right. Some municipalities did withdraw projects, but not from the ones that were found ineligible. They withdraw projects from be the ones that they didn't want anymore, mostly. So the 8 ineligible projects, as of today, it's my understanding that they have not yet submitted an official withdrawal letter.
Goes back to our previous comments about projects that aren't proceeding.
Repeat that, please.
I said that goes back to our previous discussion relative to
Right.
projects which aren't proceeding for one reason or another, and that the cities are refusing to withdraw those projects.
Yeah, it's-
And that we're not able to allocate those to other city projects that are perhaps more ready to go.
it's 43 projects. I mean, I don't know what the dollars are. Can you tell me about? Because that's money that's in that 805 that's tied up that can't be.
So there are $43 million worth of projects under agreement, and as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, there was about $140 million set aside for Cycle 1 projects. So there's about $90 million worth of projects that are not under agreement.
Or
No, the 43 that don't have checklist documents submitted.
Right.
What's the total million?
Well, I'm trying to do a quick estimate, because I'm looking at agreements in draft form under project review. So the 43 projects with no checklist documents submitted says, let's see, 21.2 million for construction phase,
right.
16.4 million for R&M. I'm going to just take a general guess based on how small the funding levels are for planning projects and the fact that there are only 5 of those. Let's say about 50 million.
Okay.
I think that would be probably conservative.
I assume we'll be addressing this later in the year.
We will be addressing this in detail in August as part of the
First of all,
5-year plan.
congratulations to the 8 cities that are really moving along and leveraging their money. In fact, it'd be interesting to know, are we getting a 10 or 20% leverage overall, or better, it seems, of the ones that have done it? And my last comment would be, if we have a 9 or 11% increase in inflation, or whatever you want to call it, is our income coming in better than we expected? And is it equal to or greater than the additional costs we're incurring for construction?
Vice Chair, I think we'll be in a better position to answer that question in August, for sure. I think once the county administrator publishes her recommended budget and the Office of Management and Budget has a better idea of where we are as we get closer to the end of our fiscal year, we'll be able to answer those questions for you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything? Thank you very much.
A pleasure. Thank you.
Are we going to,
We have one final presentation before lunch and wrap up. Oh, that's right. Sorry. We have 2 more before lunch. So just an update on public outreach and education, and then your quarterly update on CBE goal attainment.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Was that my
Welcome.
cue to? You're hungry? Yeah. Okay. Okay. No pressure. And it's the first time I've had this many slides ever, so good timing. I'll go fast. So I'm coming to you today with some new project summaries and a little look back through time. I will run through, and please ask me questions towards the end. We are out in the community. We've been waiting for these moments to come. Pandemic restrictions have lifted and gone away in a lot of places. So all these backup calls and bookings we've had for events that just kept moving and moving are actually coming to fruition. So it's so exciting to see our table in action. Thanks to Tashana here. She's been booking them. manning or womaning the tables, what have you. We have provided an update to you all as far as where we're going and when we go. I don't think we've seen anyone yet, but we're going to continue to give you those updates. So if you find us at a community fair or something in your neighborhood, you don't have to sit with us at the table, but please come by. We'd love to take a photo with you, like you to stand there for a couple minutes, hear the questions that people are asking. These tablets here will go into detail on what those are doing, which is the public perception survey that you requested a few meetings back. And so you received the survey. Hopefully you took it and shared it. We've got about 15 questions on there. We've been promoting it in person, as you saw on that last slide, on the tablets. We've been promoting it online in really, I think, every possible way we can. So over here to the left, this is an actual ad on Google where we have in the background set geographic and demographic opening to basically anybody with an IP address in Brauer County. They have the option of clicking this. We left it very obscure. Hopefully that kind of makes people want to know more. And then once they click into the box on Give Us Your Thoughts, they're introduced into the survey. Nextdoor is a very popular app. A lot of our cities are really engaging on outside of the survey, but just sharing their project information. It's such a niche way of getting the word out there. And then over here to the right, you have an actual picture of the Facebook ad. Same background settings as the Google ad, where we're not going into specific education levels or income levels or ages. Again, it is if your IP address or phone's IP address is based in Brauer County, at some point you should or could run across this ad. Right now, we have close to 500 responses. The goal is 2,500 would be an ideal sampling. So time and money are really the way to get there. The ads I showed you before are very inexpensive and such a strategic way to get something like this out there. It just takes time. And this completion rate for a 15 question survey says a lot. Your average person does not give you more than 6 answers on a survey. So to me, this says people are interested in this topic and they want to be heard. So luckily, the questions are very concise, easily understood. Nobody's really spending too much more than 5 minutes on the survey. So once we have this ideal sampling ready of the survey, which again was that 2,500, we will share the data with you all, put a report together. And at this time, we're thinking we'll have our CBE marketing consultant, Adept, help us with the next steps, which are really diving down into deeper conversations with people on why the answers are what they are, and just continuing to give us more intel and data so we can make the best decisions on investing the Surtax money throughout the county. Annual report. You all have it. You have physical copies. It's online. I won't bore you through this slew of bullets on ways and methods we have promoted the annual report, but please know this isn't even all of it. We certainly have been transparent by putting the report together, by making sure it's available on these different methods and avenues, and we are certainly accountable by doing this, again, by not only putting the annual report together, but most methods, actually every method here, has some sort of back-end tracking or analytical way for us to know where the report's going, where it's being seen, who's seeing it. This year, new, we were very excited to share that we've had the annual report translated into 3 other languages, which we all identified a couple meetings back through the census data, which has informed us that Broward County is very much a mixed cultural community, and Portuguese, Creole, and Spanish are heavily spoken here. And so now the annual report is available in those languages as well. I mentioned probably in my first presentation that I think I have one of the best jobs here with that map admin. I am almost 2 years in, and I'm still going to tell you I think I have one of the best jobs here. And through all these steps and months, we just took some high-level things that we introduced to you in that September report to let you know that they happened. You can kind of call this a little walk-through history, little story timeline here. I want to highlight with you trip down memory lane. The annual report, which was a lot of what you're going to see here was highlighted in previous slides, or you'll see going forward. The multilingual collateral, that's the annual report, which I mentioned was one of them. So this is pretty much where we are now. Future bullets will hopefully include a new website and short videos. We introduced to you what we call the About Us, or the corporate video, which is that long 2.5-minute video, which has been traveling through the world of the internet. So as far as tracking goes and knowing how many people are seeing that video, once it leaves our bubble I guess you could say bubble of our accounts, we don't know how many views it has, but just on our end, we can tell you that it's got 3,000 views. We have a lot of the cities liked it so much they took the hard file and loaded it on their accounts or their websites. So that's kind of where we lose tracking, but it was a great investment. And knowing how well received that video is, and videos are, period. It's not just that we came up with some great idea. We'd like to go and create smaller videos, short videos that explain the different areas of the program. We feel we've accomplished defining what the program is, why it's important, what it does, why you should care in that 2.5-minute video. But now we want to start getting down into the details of the different, when you go to the dashboard and you see the categories, what those categories mean and how those projects work and things like that. So I'm hoping to start having some of those shorter videos for you, maybe by next fall. Here's some future planning bullets we have highlighting for you. Continuation of the presentation and events. We are now at the point, which Lena and Alex highlighted for you, where cities are starting projects and completing projects. So now not only are we out there at events and fairs, but we're already organizing project kickoffs. City of Westlake, right? Westlake. They're shooting for summer. West Park is organizing with us. Huh? Sorry? So we're organizing a kickoff event with them. Davie definitely wants to do something when they complete their College Ave and their projects, which are huge. And these are events that we would love for you to attend. So keep an eye out for those emails on those events. Infographics are working well for us. I'll just kind of fast forward to those. When I say infographics, I mean these bubbles here. And to just kind of go into the syllabus of things, when we do the videos, which I was talking about a few slides back, we would further define what these are. The reason I'm taking a minute to explain that to you is because it's an investment of time, but it seems to be working. Yes, we have this formal public perception survey where we're getting concrete answers from people, but while we're out there, we also have conversations with people, with coworkers, with cities, and they're just loving that concept of being able to quickly see within an icon what this program's about. It's really doing a good job of explaining what's going on. So we want a continuation of that, and you'll see more of those in different places. Multilingual media, I'm going to highlight that for you in the next slide. Again, we translated the annual report, but we also created a shorter version of that About Us video to what the bare bones essential are, and we've translated that into a few languages. The website we've already talked about. Upcoming events, we have West Park, which I mentioned, digital media kits. Now that we have this collateral, both digital and physical, we are putting together pieces and packets and sharing them with community leaders, with the media, with school representatives, and they are then in turn helping us get the word out. So translated here in the 3 languages I mentioned are the rack cards. These rack cards are being distributed throughout the county in the places in which they fit. For instance, Deerfield, they've got some Brazilian markets. They let us drop some stacks off there. It's a very grassroots method we put into place. We just physically, when we're out there driving projects or meeting with cities, my trunk looks like a map depot, map admin depot of just like giveaways and things like that. But it just seems to be the most easy and realistic way to literally get the word out. Just gonna show you a quick video. Again, I know you've seen the video, but I want you to appreciate that we not only translated the audio, but a lot of entities and companies, and understandably so, because it takes a lot of time and sometimes can be costly, we've also translated the graphics behind it. So the thinking here is people watch videos on their phone for the most part, especially specific age groups only watch videos on their phone, but their volume's not always on. So this is a good way for them to see what we're talking about.
2 millones de personas en la playa, de camino al trabajo, o yendo a ver a la abuela, constantemente en movimiento. Puede que cada uno de nosotros se dirija a lugares diferentes, pero todos nos enfrentamos a los mismos retos para ir del punto A al punto B, la congestión y llegar seguros a donde necesitamos. En 2018, los residentes del condado de Brauer votaron para hacer algo al respecto. Aprobaron el plan a 30 años Penny for Transportation. Si usamos una sobretasa discrecional sobre las ventas, podríamos enfrentar los retos de movilidad directamente. Hoy el plan no es solo un plan, es un programa de proyectos inteligentes que innovarán todo el condado. Los proyectos de MAP Brauer crearán conectividad, mejorarán el servicio del tránsito, administrarán los sistemas de tráfico, mejorarán las opciones multimodales y, al mismo tiempo, garantizarán desarrollo y beneficios económicos. Lo invitamos a que vea qué hay en el horizonte para su vecindario. Descubra todo ahora mismo en nuestro panel interactivo de proyectos. Empiece ahora. Visite mapbrauer.brauer.org.
Question, I keep seeing the different languages, but you do have it in English, right? I don't mean to be ridiculous. I just want to make sure.
Fair question. Yes. That was our base point. Yes. So here are some more highlights of some nice engagement events. And again, we're actually being able to celebrate cities' projects. Lena and Alex highlighted Southwest Ranches. We did a little story them on our newsletter. First completed municipal project, drainage project there. Some of the staff and our Alex over there. What else do we have here? We're going out to some of the schools, some of the city events. Lower right-hand corner. This to me is probably my favorite picture because of what it represents. On's group, Richard Group, Construction, Public Works. Now when they do their meetings, if it's map related, we share our branding with them. So it's not just this administration getting the word out now, it's our arms. So we're really working together and we're looking good in the community. Another way we're looking good in the community here. These are real life signs you'll see out there. Over to the right, you'll see us featured in the different cities' newsletters. Again, our education and outreach model is to train the trainers or speak to the trusted voices in the community and give them the tools that they need. So much of what we do, videos are a good example, translating things are per the request or suggestion of our municipal communications people. Again, real life examples of signage out in the community. Meetings back, we went over, suggested branding guidelines and signage. It continues to be refined as we get into real life examples. So far, so good. Another nice thing to point out about the signage is the opportunity to advertise how this program leverages. So here you've got West Park's sign. The projects that this is being posted on is primarily funded by MAP. They've also got some American Rescue Plan money and their own city money in there. So hopefully that's translating to the public. Memorialized signage. So what you saw before is real-time project signage as the project's being built, right? There's no better way to literally see your dollars or pennies at work than to see the sign and whatever activity may be going on. But once the project's done a year later, you may have forgot about it. You may be new to the community. You may not know why the road is so much better here but not over there. So we intend to achieve that continual education process on where pennies have dropped or MAP Brauer money has been spent by memorialized signage. So post-project, so it's not practical in every case to brand or sign a project, but in a lot of cases, a good example is the bridge On was telling us about. We will brand and do what we can. So this white sign here is what the signage would look after the project is done with construction. Those blue signs, by the way, I should give a special thanks to our Public Works Department, because anything we've come up with in the guidelines or actually implemented has been under their guidance. So we're not doing anything the county or the DOT wouldn't do or deem safe or normal. And here are some more ways we're spreading the love or spreading the word. You'll start seeing on the municipal shuttles, over here on the right, in the center here, we gave all the cities these decals, kind of like a chamber would. We're members of a chamber. Once they start getting their funding or their agreements, we give them these decals, and they may choose or not to. And so far, all of them have chosen to put that decal right on their front door at City Hall. So that's pretty neat. That's a good example. Up to the right, you've got Southwest Ranches, and then you have some county vehicles, which is, this was your commercial break, sorry. So I'm thanking Public Works for all their collaboration and support, and we're also thanking our cities. So things like the annual report, the public perception survey, project updates. The cities have tools, and as they should, to speak to and educate their residents and businesses, and they're letting us in on those tools too. So what I'm going to show you now is just a quick highlight reel of not even 4 months. Yeah, like a little over 4 months of just shares that we've got from the cities. Their websites, and I will stop talking and take any questions, and hopefully I have answers for you.
You may have mentioned this. I agree that video is a really good thing to arbitrage here. How many views are we getting on the videos?
Thousands. The main video itself, we're well into probably 70,000. The county alone shared it on their Nextdoor account, and we got an exposure of like 54,000.
Okay, I mean, and I think that is just, it's an efficient way, because I've done a lot of what you're doing when I was doing like bike walk advocacy, and you show up at these parks, and it's just, it can be somewhat random. I think it's a really good thing to do. I think it's hard to get a lot of eyes that way. So I really like the idea of leveraging the video, and I'm glad we're getting views.
And the funny thing is, we could be at an event like you're talking about and have the tablets, and when we aren't running the survey, we just have the videos looping. And it's the world we live in today. Here we are to talk to you, and they'll play the video.
Yeah.
Watch the video.
I know, it's kind of crazy, but it is something that I think to stay kind of modern, we just have to, and are we getting, even if we're getting thousands, should it be more. I just think when we go into that world, we should just be creative in terms of getting new eyes on this stuff all the time, and maybe other people, I don't want to say influencers because that's kind of silly for like a county thing, but at the end of the day, people that maybe do have a YouTube presence that are Broward County residents, for example, we could involve them in some way, just stuff like that, just be creative with the strategy.
They've been talking to me about doing that, and you know, we have to be careful, we have to be educational, and we have to make sure that when we are producing material and then disseminating it, that it doesn't have any benefit for the person who is disseminating it for us. So we're real careful about that, and I did want to just give a shout out to the team. They've been incredibly creative. Besides the video that was actually professionally developed by one of our very talented CBE firms, ADG, that came to you in the English version. You know, our own team makes videos for social media that get a lot of eyes and get a lot of shares and retweets. And as Nicole pointed out, one of the things that we're really looking at in the next year is doing a lot more videos that are focused on specific project types. What she didn't cover is that we're also looking at opportunities to create AR and VR videos. And we're working with our transit partners to see if there are particular big projects that we might want to turn into almost like a fully immersive kind of a game to get people to, you know, one of the ideas we had is turn it into a game where, you know, two different people can have a AR headset and they can try to race each other to a destination using various modes of transportation. Just to get people used to putting a bike on the front of a fixed route bus, riding that bus, paying a fare, and then getting to their final destination. So that's in the works too.
Nicole, I have one question and one comment. Question is, you say you have about 500 of what you would like as 1,500 of the surveys complete. When do you anticipate that to happen?
2,500 and
2,500.
I mean, ideally. Yeah.
Strategies are being employed to hit that number.
So that bullet list you saw there, we've shared it on social media. The cities have shared it on their accounts.
Right, okay.
Email blast, the ads, the Facebook ads, which we.
The county has shared it for us.
County.
The Prosperity Partnership has shared it for us. Other business groups have shared it.
Yeah.
If you all are members of professional associations, I know we begged last time, please share it for us.
Yeah.
But yes.
And you can reach out to faith-based organizations.
So we have a list that our consultant put together a while back of leaders of faith-based groups, university, Broward's largest employers, and we've emailed those groups requesting them to do such. I hate to say it, but I mean, private sector, they can get their surveys completed within a timeline because they can offer a $25 Amazon gift card or, you know, free movie tickets or something else. This is charity, and it's 15 questions. So yes.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Nicole, I think your enthusiasm has certainly translated into your work product, and all I can say is
Thank
keep
you.
it up.
We're a team, Tashana too. Thank you so much. Mr. Talk about enthusiasm next up.
Now that's a good intro to Sandy. Talk about Mr. Enthusiasm. This is our last presentation before our lunch break? All right, thank you.
What? I'm your last before your lunch break? I'm standing between you and your meal, so I will not stand long. It's still morning. Good morning, board. How are you? Hope all is well. What I'm going to try to do is give you a quick update of where we are, and in short, where we are with the small business program, with the goals, with the reviews. We're on spot. From the number we're reviewing, to the municipalities as well as the cities, the ones that are submitted to us, the ideas of direct communication with the cities and with our municipal partners, with our county agency partners, To date, you can see on reviewed, and I'm gonna be real careful about the reviewed versus awarded, but on the reviewed, you can see that these are direct communications, which is what we love with our county agencies as well as with our municipalities. So the upside to the reviews with the municipality is not just the goal request form. It started off being just the written form. It's now more dialogue. And working with Angela and working with Gretchen and actually working with the cities, we recognize from time to time there can be miscommunication. So it's affording us a quality opportunity because, again, in case you don't remember, from our end of this, see, we're 4 years in. We started in 2018, 2019 talking about small business participation if this was approved. We started talking about working with cities for the first time because cities weren't required to use my small businesses, only the county. So from 2018 and 2019, we were educating the cities to the small business program. Then 2019, 2020, we started working with them through a goal request form only after we trained every single one of the cities. And if you remember, in 2020, the last 13 of my cities, we had to do virtual because of COVID. But then we started going into 2021 and we recognized that as questions was being asked while they were completing the form, it just made sense. Let's start doing even more virtual. And as virtual went away, let's start doing more one-on-ones. And we even started gearing up doing more technical assistance training because whether you believe it or not, in 4 years, again, for what we were doing, faces changed. Faces didn't only change in the city, faces changed in my office. So we recognized it was now time to go back around the second time and meet with every single city. So we're hitting the numbers of the 30. The goal request forms are coming in much cleaner. And even those that we have conversation about, we're able to explain that with the city, check with our administration, and now we can use that as a policy or process for other communities when we do the training. So it's been exciting for us and the staff because before you guys were born, our objective has always been to get the cities to use small certified businesses in the cities, and we have been unsuccessful. This project, this initiative with 27 years to go has really excited the cities, and I'm speaking for them in case they're listening today, has excited the cities to understanding it does make fiscal sense, economic development sense, good business sense to use businesses in your community when it doesn't cost you more than what you would do outside your community. We still get a quality project and you're returning that investment to your same community. So it's been very helpful to us. Projects awarded. The same holds true. At this time, as you guys probably, well, you've already heard in your earlier meeting, there's still more awarded on the county side than the municipal side, but the tracking is good, which is going to be shown in my next slide, because one of the things that we originally started, the goal is 30, and we often talk about small businesses being a part of that 30% of 100% of a contract. But we have really been pushing our small businesses when capacity affords itself. Don't be that 10, 15, or 30% of a contract. If you have capacity as a small business, go after the contract as a prime. You then can meet the goal, but also control the project. And as a company, that's how you scale up and grow. You can begin to do more as a company. So we're also excited about not just meeting the goals based on projects awarded, but more importantly, when we have CBEs at the end of the day who end up being the primes. We are keeping, per your request, the running list of the industry of our CBEs based on projects that are awarded. So we do have that ongoing awarded list that's in your package. And we're also maintaining this for our commissioners and others, and it's also a part of your heat map to know where the projects are by zip code. And we're also still paying attention to the zip codes relevant to Prosperity Broward in terms of taking a look at those 6 challenge zip codes in Broward County. So we're still maintaining those numbers. And again, it's not just reporting this quarterly. It's the idea that as we're doing our training, as we're doing our outreach, making sure that we're also targeting those communities and targeting those community partners and targeting those small businesses to make sure that they too recognize there's opportunities for them. So we don't want to just come up here quarterly and report. We want to make sure that there's a clear opportunity to engage the businesses in those communities to make sure that they too have opportunities for what this project or this initiative offers. And again, as I mentioned, we now have several projects where the CBE did not just settle on being the subcontractor, where they actually went after the project as the prime. They still may decide to meet the goal at the 30 or the 40 of the number, but they won the entire project. And our day job, which I think would happen more with Surtax later on or with MAP later on, many of our prime CBEs decide that I might do the entire job myself, but this is what capacity is about. I don't want the CBEs taking on the entire job if they can't do the job. So if the goal is 40 and it's a $3 million project, and as a CBE, you got capacity to do the entire project, you don't have to commit to 100% CBE participation, even though you're a CBE. Commit to the goal portion, still be the prime CBE, and hire other businesses that you can now be the superintendent, the supervisor, you're the prime contractor. This is where they build better relationships and grow their opportunities even beyond MAP, beyond my small business program, later with businesses beyond Brauer. So I'm just excited. And these projects on this chart, as well as these projects on this chart, these CBEs actually won them as primes. And that's a plus. So we're featuring these guys. We're doing our outreach, and the best way for me to excite other businesses is not for them to hear from me, for them to see at different workshops and different trainings to get the name of projects, get the name of companies, get the dollar value, and say the guys and girls you've been sitting with in these workshops for 2 years are actually winning contracts. So this is how we're leveraging that opportunity to grow more CBEs as we work closer with our cities. Again, similar, our community relation outreach also works closely with Nicole and her team, and these are the activities as we propose to you that we'll continue to do to promote and to market, not just MAP, but promote and market MAP as opportunities for our cities and our small businesses to participate. Some more of the advertising that we've done, and again, we're in that throes that we've been doing the recruitment and the sharing of information locally. And then we mentioned to you we would now start doing it within South Florida, the regional. We'll be coming back because as I roll into next year, we started talking about doing the entire state. And if you remember my report, we're trying to get to 2024, where we'll be doing more target recruitment, advertising, and promotion of our activities outside the state, because we want to target the workforce development aspects. But in fairness, we wanted to make sure our first 3 to 4 years was focusing on the businesses and the opportunities right here in Broward for our businesses. More of the advertising and outreach that we've been doing. And we do, similar to the different platforms. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on IG, Instagram as again, so we're back after a 2 years hiatus due to the pandemic, and next Friday, this time next week, we have our signature event, which is our Broward and Beyond Business Conference. This would have 700 to 800 small businesses in participation. So certainly MAP from administration perspective and MAP from our perspective are going to be featured there. We're going to have some of our folks as panelists. Some of your team will also be there as a part of our booth. This is a direct opportunity to make sure 700 to 800 small businesses are informed even more about what these opportunities are long term. We're even setting up a table for the next 2 years when we do this, inviting our cities to come and be at the table as a part of the booth to talk about projects they might have rolling out over the next 60 to 90 days. But 3 years from now, when we're doing this event, there will be an expectation that the individual cities themselves, based on projects, based on better working relationships, more activity, will be having booths themselves. We even have an afternoon session that will also be consistent of MAP called Meet the Primes. And it's where prime contractors now have an opportunity to meet small businesses, to do business with the county, as well as to do business through MAP Surtax. So guys, that is it. Sorry if I stayed too long for your lunch. I'll certainly entertain any questions you might have if you have any.
I gotta tell you, I like that whole program where the prime is the CBE and then can expand their network. But I think that's brilliant.
I like that, Chair. I do too. I mean, that's exciting because it goes beyond us, goes beyond Surtax. And when I start talking about the economic impact and the growth of the county, that's where it comes from. When my primes can grow, I'm not afraid of them leaving here, but their growth is here. Their employees are here. A lot of their supplies and opportunities are here. That's the best thing, if our primes can be prime CBEs and not just subs. Well, thank you all. Have a
Excellent.
great lunch.
Thank you.
So at this point, you just do a non-agenda and adjourning the meeting if you want. There's nothing else. You could do a chair's report or a member's report and then just adjourn.
No,
Enjoy your lunch.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to bring up that's a non-agenda item? So I would be interested in the next meeting to dive into some of the stuff we talked about earlier during the audit. I really would. I'd like, and maybe that just comes with your typical one of your reports, but I just would like to see how things are progressing on some of the big picture projects that we're going to be doing whenever our next meeting is.
Well, I just saw, Mr. Garling is on the line. I know that he's listening, and he will have a lot, I think, to share with you by the end of August when we do our workshop with respect to those large Broward County transit projects that are on the horizon, right?
Yeah.
There, as is always the case, you will get a really deep dive into the major initiatives that are going to be happening in fiscal year 2023 on the county side, both from the Public Works Department as well as Broward County Transit. And then you'll see that 5-year plan. As part of that 5-year plan, when you stepped out, Mr. Chair, I made a commitment to bring you detailed information about performance at the municipal level. We always provide you information at the county level about projects, whether they're on time, whether they're on budget. But what I'm really excited to tell you is that we've reinvigorated that internal dashboard. I don't know if you recall so we built a robust internal dashboard to track all of the actions taken by this oversight board when you entertain things that were in the original plan, when new things find their way into the overall 30-year plan. And I'm happy to tell you we have a really great senior GIS analyst on the team, and that she has been working overtime to get both the public dashboard and that internal dashboard up to date. So we'll have a lot to show you with respect to the questions that you've asked today. And I'm sure that our budget team will also be able to give you some insights about how those reserves that have been put away and are going to be put away in the future are intended to be spent.
Great. Thank you. All right. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
And for those oversight board members that are still on, you can go ahead and eat, that are on the line through Zoom, the ethics training will start very soon. So please stay tuned.
Dun 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 dun. feel red lip now.